Hi, and welcome to Making Waves on Purpose. Today, I'm delighted to have Bree Fram with me. I met Bree at the CECP summit not too long ago. She is a lieutenant colonel with the Space Force, the U.S. Space Force, and one of the highest ranking military leaders who is trans. Fascinating and engaging person, and really helped me to develop and further my understanding of diversity and inclusion, especially from the LGBTQ and trans perspective. A fabulous conversation with a fabulous person who I think you will really enjoy getting to know. And with no further ado, I bring you Bree Fram. Bree, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to join you. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
Yeah, great to connect. Tell us a little bit about your journey. We met at CECP and I watched what I think was a half an hour presentation, which you said was about 2 45-minute presentations into 1.5 hours. And so I'm going to be even more demanding on you and ask you in a few minutes to tell us about who you are in your journey and where you work and all of the above.
Well, I will try and make it brief. If you do the really glib version of my bio, I'm a space nerd and a mid-level government bureaucrat. But more than that, I happen to be one of the senior transgender military officers serving for the United States today. And that is a long story of how did I get here? How did we get to this point? How did my life turn from being focused on my career to being both focused on that and being almost an accidental advocate? So I'm now both an officer serving as my day job, but in my myriad gay jobs, I am an inclusion speaker, author, expert, talking about why it's so important for us to create environments where everyone feels valuable, how that's important both to mission success or to success in an organization, in business, or in any part of the life, really, that we get to enjoy. So there's a ton we can dive into, but that's kind of the short version of where I'm at.
Well, I love it. I've read some of your information on your podcast and your website. And it seems like through your process, you've kind of been attacked from both sides. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting being in the shoes of a transgender person, or really an LGBTQ person writ large, serving in the military, because we are, in a sense, hated or despised by both the far left and the far right. On the far left, it says, you're queer, you shouldn't be in the military. And on the far right, it's, you're in the military, you shouldn't be queer. And so trying to walk that path, it almost forces a sense of pragmatism on you. How do we look for incremental change? How do we make arguments for inclusion that aren't necessarily morally based, that it's not someone is wrong, but it's simply valuable to an organization to embrace everyone because there is talent in all bodies that are out there, no matter who that body happens to love or what gender they happen to be. We need to be able to take advantage of that talent. And for those of us that wear the uniform, we can't be radicals in any shape of the way, or in any way that word means. We have to fight for improving our organizations by making concrete steps towards mission success.
Yeah, I've always believed in this kind of tempered radical approach. It's a bit of a tightrope, though, because you have to watch yourself, too, and say, okay, am I pushing as hard as I can push without pushing too hard, which is a bit of a balancing act yourself and kind of challenges your sense of identity and leadership. And by the way, I love your podcast, Forged in Fire, and the work that you all are doing. And this idea of that these minority experiences, and especially experiences that are maybe not so visible, minority experiences that are not so visible, are essentially leadership incubators.
Absolutely. I think that's a key concept that we're exploring at the intersection of leadership and either sexual orientation or gender identity. How do minority experiences, particularly those of the LGBTQ community, drive leadership growth? And I think it is absolutely a fascinating process to look at, where people have to do the internal work almost to identify themselves, who they are, create that self-acceptance that allows them to stand as an individual, regardless of who society tells them they should be. And in doing that work, you're often creating this sense of leadership that is not about self, but it's about all of us. And how do we create these leaders that are focused on making sure that everyone flourishes, that focus on eliminating barriers to success, that allow everyone to reach their full potential? And I truly believe that the experiences of LGBTQ individuals and so many others that have faced discrimination actually set up these crucible moments that people go through that help them develop that sense of leadership being for everyone.
I love that. I love that. I mean, we've seen it in so many leadership books or theories or practices, this idea of like how these terrible experiences or challenging experiences can really steal us and bring out the best. When you and I met, we talked about how I think I said, I don't want to engage the transphobe. I don't want to engage the white nationalist, but I do want to engage the 47-year-old soccer mom or equivalent who somehow is within their echo chamber hearing things that is making them afraid or angry or whatnot, and understand the sources of those. Talk a little bit about how you think we can do better as a society in engaging each other in these conversations.
I think it takes active work on both participants who are trying to find out how to communicate better with one another. We are so divided into media or social circle bubbles that we have to be willing to reach out and to listen. The challenge is finding someone on the other side who is willing to do the same. And usually the best way of doing that is in face-to-face engagements, in-person things where you can first establish that you've got some element of shared humanity, whether that's you both like the same type of food, you both cheer for the same sports team, you both have the experience of dealing with crazy children. You know, there's so many things that I and some other mom, regardless of her views, could connect over. But if we can get there, then we can start having those real conversations about our differences or about the things that we're afraid of, or really about stereotypes, because usually that's what we're reacting to is the stereotype of a trans person or the stereotype of someone we don't know or who believes something that we don't. And realizing then if you meet someone face to face that you can break or reshape those stereotypes is one of the most valuable things we can possibly do. I told a story, and you've heard this once already, that I had a boss that told me I broke his stereotype of who a trans person was just by showing up to work every day. And what a low bar that was. But those outlandish, crazy stereotypes are out there. And if we get the chance to say hello to one another, we can go from there and break those and shape it for a better future.
I love that. I love that. I think that's so important. As you think about what it's taken to change within the environment you work, which, as you said, it gets attacked on both sides. Think about corporate America and what they're going through right now and this whole Bud Light backlash and silliness. What do you think corporate leaders need to be thinking about and actions they need to be taking?
Yeah, today is a really tough environment for corporate organizations in terms of relating to their LGBTQ workforce and the public at large. One of the things I think that is really important to know, particularly for corporations in America, is your employees are scared. They see what's going on around them in the world. They see almost 600 anti-LGBTQ bills being introduced in state legislators this year alone, far exceeding any previous record. And particularly if you're a corporation or organization with employees in the states where that's occurring or in multiple states, your employees may be thinking about leaving or moving. We have almost an internal refugee crisis in the United States where people are fleeing states because they don't feel safe any longer. So first, reach out to your employees, understand that they may have fears over what's going on, and your support may be absolutely critical. It's probably awfully important to your company in the bottom line to retain these amazing employees who may be working for you. So that's one thing that corporations should be aware of. Another is that fair weather allyship is not allyship at all. To be able to put out a rainbow colored can or put out pride themed decorations and at the slightest hint of opposition to pull that down, what does that say to people? That really says that you don't care. You are just paying lip service to the idea of pride in order to bring in a few more dollars. But if you truly believe in those values, you believe in inclusion, you believe in having a diverse workforce that supports the goal of your organization, you need to be there at the bad times, not just at the good times. So those two things are incredibly important. And then also to think about where corporate giving or corporate political donations go to. And that's a hard one because money is access. And if you don't have access, it's hard to push for the policies you need. But again, it goes back to values. If a politician is pushing virulent anti-trans or anti-LGBTQ hate, think about what giving money to that politician says to your employees who may be LGBTQ. Again, I know it's a fine line to walk. This is where I can understand and I get the pragmatic aspect of doing so. But corporations should, at the very least, be aware of the messages they're sending through that giving.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And my hope is that over time, people take them more seriously because there are sources out there where you can look at where corporate giving is going and kind of track it back, and especially in the political realm, and see who is being supported. I think you're right. I also think like the whole Bud Light thing, I had a conversation with somebody else recently on this issue, and I think they really shouldn't have blinked. I think they could have easily have said, hey, listen, this is about America and us celebrating freedom and diversity, and we'll put Kid Rock on a can too, if he wants a can. And in fact, we'll give him a discount if he wants to get his AR-15 and shoot at cans. Sure. Like this is what freedom looks like.
Yeah, freedom is about everyone having the opportunity to be themselves, to be their authentic best selves. Freedom is about allowing us all to express who we are, not imposing one person, one corporation, or one religion's idea upon everyone.
I think that's exactly right. And this celebration of pluralism as part of our core kind of values we have as a country. And, it's something that you said, too. I had a recent conversation about people who aren't feeling comfortable about going to Florida. NAACP came out and said this is a place that's hostile to people of color. And as you said, over 600, I'm shocked by that number, 600 pieces of legislation that are anti-trans. Is the country going further into this red state, blue state space in a very unhelpful way? And we're going to further kind of reinforce our echo chambers?
I think we are at the moment, yet I remain hopeful that we are seeing what may be the last gasp of fear of the unknown and the minority populations, because challenges to minority groups have worked their way down to ever smaller and smaller groups. And trans people kind of feel like we are the last boogeyman. We're the thing that people can still be afraid of because we are such a small portion of the population. It's not okay to openly hate or discriminate against African Americans or women, or to a certain degree, even lesbians and gays. But for trans people, it's okay, even though we're facing the same arguments that all those previous groups have faced. What the hope is that if we stop it here, we stop it. It is over. And that we create a future where our organizations, the military, anything else without trans people is just as unconscionable as it would be without African Americans or women or anyone else. So I am hopeful that this is the last gasp, but will we be worse off in 4 or 5 years? Maybe. Will we be better off in 30 years? Absolutely. Because we look at the population that's coming of age today and you see almost 20% of Generation Z identifying as LGBTQ. With those type of numbers, everyone's going to know a queer person. They're going to have multiple friends that are LGBTQ. And that individualized experience, the I know someone who is, really changes things. So I'm excited about where we're going to go once we get over this hump.
I love that. I love your optimism, and I think you're exactly right. This is, the moral arc of history, right? It's certainly on our side.
Absolutely. But we have to keep doing the work to bend it. It doesn't happen on its own.
That's right. That's right. And it is work. It is hard work. And I love what you said, because I think it's exactly right. It's much harder to hate the person than it is to hate the idea of the person.
Yeah. Hating up close is hard. The people that can do that, well, they are locked in, but that's not who we're trying to win over. It's easy to hate from behind a keyboard, but if you can say those things to my face, that's much more difficult. And hopefully, if we get that opportunity, we can craft it and change it and make it a learning experience for everyone, not just a moment to retreat into our corners.
I have to tell you, you have helped me as well, us getting to know each other, only as little as we have. I've now started to put the pronouns on my email signature, because in the past, I've seen that, and I've worked in environments where that's been the norm. And I kind of thought, like, who am I helping with this? How is this helping? So I've now moved over and started doing that. And can you talk a little bit about why that's important?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for doing that, because for cisgender white men, it is more important than for anyone else to put your pronouns out there, because that tells the people whose pronouns are otherwise that it's okay. It is okay to be their authentic self. It is okay to be respected for who they are. And using pronouns appropriate to a person is one of the easiest things that any of us can do to tell someone else, I respect you. You are a part of the team. You belong here. And pronouns are really important, and putting it on signature blocks isn't something that is just important to the queer community. It is important to the countless women out there who get emails that start with sir or Mr. It is important out there in US culture for anyone who doesn't have a English sounding name, because they will often get misgendered in their emails too. So by putting that out there and out front, we're enabling everyone to tell one another who we are and then receive respect back for that.
That's wonderful. Well, you said respect, and I want to respect your time, because I know you're off to the pool with your kids. As we said, talk about things that connect us. There are many millions of parents doing the same thing today.
On Juneteenth, what a fabulous holiday. And I love that it occurs in the middle of Pride Month as an ability to say, these things are all connected. Intersectional identities are important. And these holidays that celebrate freedom, and this one really celebrating the second founding of the United States, is an outstanding way to recognize something and create a holiday that really is about inclusion.
I love that. Well, thank you for your service, but also thank you for your advocacy and your second job of service, which might be even more important than the first.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. Great to talk. Take care.
You too.